The alarm went off at 5:47 a.m., 13 minutes before it was supposed to. I lay there staring at the water stain on my ceiling. The one shaped vaguely like a dog that I'd been meaning to report to my landlord for 4 months. And I thought, another day. Not in a hopeful way. My apartment was the kind of small that real estate listings called cozy. 1 bedroom if you counted the alcove with a curtain as a bedroom. The radiator clicked and groaned every morning like it was personally offended by winter. I made coffee in a machine I'd bought at a garage sale for $3, and I drank it standing at the kitchen counter because my table was buried under a stack of case files I'd brought home the Friday before. I was 28 years old, working as a junior paralegal at Harrington and Slate, a mid-sized firm in downtown Chicago. Not glamorous. Not even close. But I was good at it, and I told myself that counted for something. My best friend. I'd known her since we were both 9 years old, sharing a desk in 3rd grade because neither of us knew anybody else, was the only person who made the commute bearable. She lived 2 stops down the same train line, and we'd ride together most mornings, cups of coffee in hand, talking about nothing important and everything that mattered. Her mom had been sick for almost a year, breast cancer, caught later than it should have been, because her mom kept putting off the appointment, kept saying she'd go next month, kept saying she was fine. She wasn't fine. The treatments were working, but the bills were not. My best friend was picking up weekend shifts at a restaurant on top of her regular job, and she still looked exhausted in a way that sleep couldn't fix. I wanted to help her. I didn't know how. My own bank account wasn't exactly overflowing. What I didn't tell her. What I hadn't told anyone, in the 2 years I'd worked at Harrington and Slate, was that my last name wasn't really Coleman. My last name was Harrington. As in, the first name on the building. My father built that firm from nothing, a single office above a dry cleaner in Wicker Park, 31 years ago. Now it occupied 4 floors of a glass tower on Michigan Avenue. I had never worked there under my real name. When I took the job, I told them I was Nora Coleman, that I'd gone to DePaul, that I was just starting out. All of that was true except the last name. I used my mother's maiden name. I'd been using it since college because I wanted to know, I needed to know whether I could make it on my own, whether anyone would ever take me seriously if they didn't know whose daughter I was. My father knew I was there. It was his idea, actually. He'd said, go in without the name. Learn the place from the inside. When you're ready, you'll know. I was starting to feel ready. And then he sent someone else in first. His name was Griffin Aldrich. He showed up on a Tuesday in February, introduced by the managing partner as someone coming in from the executive level to observe operations. That was the phrase, observe operations. Like we were a science experiment. He was maybe 32, in a suit that cost more than my monthly rent, with the easy confidence of someone who had never once in his life worried about a late fee. He smiled at everyone. He shook hands like he was running for something. Within 48 hours, he had told 4 different people that he was Montgomery Harrington's son. My father's name is Montgomery Harrington. I heard it third hand from the receptionist, who heard it from one of the associates, who heard it from one of the associates, who heard it directly from Griffin himself over lunch. I sat very still at my desk when she told me. I set down my pen carefully, like it might shatter if I dropped it. Montgomery Harrington's son. My father has 1 child. I am that child. Griffin Aldrich was not my brother. I had never met him in my life. I didn't confront him. Not right away, partly because I wasn't sure what I actually knew versus what I'd heard through office gossip. Partly because I needed to think. And partly, honestly, mostly, because I was watching him and what I saw made me want to understand the full picture before I did anything at all. He moved to the office like he owned it, which I suppose was the point. He sat in on partner meetings he hadn't been invited to. He started CCing himself on emails that had nothing to do with him. He made comments in case reviews, offhand, casual comments, that were presented as suggestions but landed like directives because everyone believed he had the authority to back them up. He didn't. But they didn't know that. The first time he affected me directly was a Thursday morning. I had a research memo due to one of the senior partners by noon, a complicated analysis I'd been working on for 3 days. I came in at 7 to do the final formatting. When I got to my desk, there was a sticky note on my monitor in handwriting I didn't recognize. Aldrich needs the Kellerman brief pulled by 10. Handle it, passed down from above. There was no signature. No explanation of who had passed it down or through whom. The Kellerman brief was in physical archives, which meant 2 hours of digging through boxes in the basement storage room, which meant I would not be finishing my own memo on time, which meant I would be the one who looked unprepared to the senior partner. I did the brief. I found it, pulled it, delivered it to Griffin's temporary office by 9058. He looked up from his phone, nodded once, and said, "Thanks, sweetheart." I said nothing. I went back upstairs. I finished my memo 20 minutes late and apologized to the senior partner, who docked it half a grade in his mental evaluation of me. I could see it in his expression. That memo was going to matter when review season came around. I went home that night and I sat on my couch in the dark for a while. My best friend texted me asking if I wanted to come over for dinner, and I said I was tired. I was tired. I was also furious in a way I didn't quite know what to do with yet. The rumors spread the way rumors do in a contained space. Fast, quiet, reshaping everything they touched. By the end of Griffin's second week, most of the staff treated him like the decisions he made were final. An associate named Kevin, who had always been perfectly decent to me before, started deferring to Griffin in meetings even when Griffin was factually wrong. I watched it happen in real time, watched Kevin correct himself mid-sentence because Griffin had tilted his head skeptically. It was remarkable and infuriating. And I recognized it because I knew what real authority looked like, and this wasn't it. This was the performance of authority, which is a different thing entirely. I called my father that weekend, not from my apartment. I drove to the parking garage 2 blocks away and sat in my car because I was that paranoid about being overheard. "Griffin Aldrich," I said when he picked up. A pause. "Where did you hear that name?" "He's in the office, Dad. He's been there for 2 weeks. He's telling people he's your son." Another pause, longer. "I know, you know. He's the son of an old colleague of mine, someone I fell out with a long time ago. I was hoping he'd show his hand before things escalated." My father's voice was measured in a way that meant he was controlling it carefully. "I didn't want to pull you out before you were ready." "I'm ready," I said. He was quiet for a moment. "Are you sure?" I looked at the concrete wall of the parking garage. I thought about the sticky note. I thought about Kevin correcting himself. I thought about my best friend working double shifts while her mom went through chemo. "I'm sure," I said. My father didn't want me to announce it. He wanted me to wait for the right moment, let it happen naturally. I understood the strategy. I was also done waiting. The moment came the following Wednesday. There was an all-staff meeting in the large conference room on the 3rd floor. Routine, quarterly, attendance technically mandatory but always loosely enforced. Griffin had apparently decided it was an opportunity because he arrived 5 minutes late and took a seat at the end of the table, near the managing partner, in a chair that implied a proximity to decision-making that he had not earned. The meeting was fine until the last 15 minutes, when he spoke up about an upcoming contract review, one I'd been doing the research for, quietly, for 3 weeks. He described the recommended approach. It was my approach, word for word, because he'd gotten hold of my internal notes somehow, though I still don't know how. The managing partner nodded along, clearly impressed. I sat across the table and breathed. Then Griffin said, "I'll be recommending we restructure the paralegal assignments on this one. Some of the junior staff aren't quite hitting the mark." He didn't look at me when he said it, which meant he either didn't know it was me or didn't care. I said, "That's interesting, because the research in those notes has my name on the original draft headers." The room went quiet the way rooms go quiet when something has shifted and nobody's sure yet which direction it shifted in. Griffin looked at me for the first time. "I'm sorry. And you are?" "Nora," I said. And then I set my hands flat on the table. "Nora Harrington, Montgomery Harrington's daughter." I want to be clear, I did not enjoy the next 60 seconds in the way you might imagine. There's a version of this story where I felt triumphant, where I savored every expression that crossed Griffin Aldrich's face. I didn't. I felt something closer to tired, like I'd been holding a very heavy thing for a long time and I'd finally set it down on the table in front of everyone, and now I just wanted to go home. The managing partner, who had known my father for 20 years, turned the color of old paper. He said my name slowly, like he was checking if it was real. I nodded. Griffin recovered fast, I'll give him that. He smiled, that same easy smile, and said, "Well, that's quite a surprise." Like we were at a dinner party. Like this was a fun coincidence, is it? I said. Because I've been here for 2 years. Under my mother's maiden name because I wanted to learn this place honestly. I looked at the managing partner. My father knew. It was our arrangement. What was not our arrangement was Griffin Aldrich telling this office he was my father's son. Someone at the far end of the table made a sound. Kevin looked at the ceiling. Griffin said, I think there's been a misunderstanding. There hasn't, I said, quietly. Not dramatic, just flat and clear. I'd like HR in this room before we continue. He was gone by Friday. It turned out that Griffin's father, the old colleague my father had mentioned, had sent him in deliberately. An attempt to get inside information on several cases where their interests were adverse. The managing partner was embarrassed and angry in equal measure, mostly at himself for not verifying Griffin's claims before granting him so much access. There were internal reviews. There were apologies. There was a conversation with my father that I was not in the room for. My father called me that evening. He said, I'm proud of you. He said it in that particular way he has, where he means 15 other things underneath it that he doesn't say out loud. I said, I know. Then I said, I want to talk about my actual title and compensation, because paralegal is not it anymore. He laughed. It was the best sound I'd heard in weeks. The thing I keep coming back to when I tell this story is not the confrontation. People always want to know about the confrontation. What I said, what he said, whether I felt powerful. I didn't. Particularly. What I felt was correct, which is different. What I keep coming back to is my best friend. A few weeks after everything settled, I sat down with her on a Friday night at her kitchen table. The same table where we'd done homework together in high school, that she'd taken with her through 3 apartments. And I told her everything. The whole story. The real last name. The 2 years. The arrangement with my father. All of it. She was quiet for a long time when I finished. Then she said, You paid for my mom's surgery, didn't you? I hadn't planned to tell her that part. I'd arranged it through the hospital's billing department, had asked them to process it as an anonymous donor payment toward the outstanding balance. I didn't want her to feel like she owed me something. I didn't want to change what we were to each other. But she'd figured it out. She knew me too well. I said, The balance is cleared. The rest of this year's treatment is covered. She pressed her lips together. Her eyes got bright. You should have told me, she said. I know. I would have told you, she said. I know. I would have told you it was too much. I know. That's why I didn't tell you. She looked at me for a long time. Then she got up and hugged me. Not the kind of hug where you pat someone's back and step away, but the real kind, where you hold on because you mean it. I held on because I meant it. I'm not going to pretend the transition has been simple. It hasn't. There are people at the firm who respected me when they thought I was nobody, and now they don't know how to look at me. There are people who dismissed me for 2 years and now fall over themselves to include me in things. I'm learning to read the difference, which matters more than it sounds. I still read the train in the morning. I still drink garage sale machine coffee, though my best friend has started threatening to buy me a better one. My apartment still has the dog-shaped water stain on the ceiling. I keep meaning to report it. Some things are the same. Some things are completely, permanently different. My name is Nora Harrington. I worked in my father's firm for 2 years without anyone knowing who I was, and I learned things I would not have learned any other way, about what it takes to do the work, about who shows up honestly and who doesn't, about the kind of company I actually want to build someday. Because that's the part I haven't mentioned yet. The reason my father wanted me to learn from the inside. Not to take over what he built, but to understand it well enough to build something of my own. I have a meeting with him next month. I have a business plan. I have 2 years of case knowledge, a network of people who know what I'm actually capable of, and a best friend who will tell me when I'm making a mistake. I think I'm ready. I've been ready for a while. I've thought a lot about what actually happened in that conference room. Not the dramatic version, not the gasps, not Griffin's smile slipping, not the managing partner going pale. I've thought about the quieter thing underneath all of it. The reason it worked at all. It worked because I had done the work. That's it. That's the whole thing. Griffin walked into that firm with a name that wasn't his, and it carried him for weeks, because people respond to the signal of authority before they ever examine whether the authority is real. I watched that happen. I watched smart, capable people defer to him because the story he told was convincing and nobody thought to check. That's not stupidity. That's just how humans work. We take in information fast and we fill in the gaps with whatever makes sense in the moment. Griffin understood that. He used it. What he didn't account for was me. Not because I'm exceptional, but because I'd spent 2 years in that building learning what was actually true. About the cases, about the people, about the work itself. You cannot fake that. You can perform authority, but you cannot perform competence. Not up close, not over time. The research in those notes had my name on the original headers because I had actually written it. That's not a dramatic revelation, it's just cause and effect. He took credit for something real, and the something real had a paper trail. I think about the choices I made that led to that moment. Not just the choice to use my mother's name, but the smaller ones. The choice to do the Kellerman brief even when it cost me. The choice to stay quiet and watch instead of reacting. The choice to call my father from a parking garage instead of making a scene on the office floor. None of those felt powerful in the moment. They felt like eating the loss. But they were building something, whether I recognized it or not. The pattern of your choices over time becomes the foundation you're standing on when the moment that matters finally arrives. I'm not saying I was patient or strategic or any of the things that sound good in retrospect. Half the time I was just tired and irritated and eating sad desk lunches and wondering if I was wasting my 20s. That's the honest version. But I kept showing up, and I kept doing the work correctly, and when it mattered, I had something real to stand on. And then there's my best friend. I keep coming back to her. I think about the 2 years I watched her pick up extra shifts while her mom was in treatment, the exhaustion she carried without complaining about it, the way she kept showing up for me during all of it without knowing what I was carrying. She was loyal to a person she thought was Nora Coleman, a junior paralegal who drank bad coffee and complained about the commute. She didn't know about the Harrington name. She didn't know about the arrangement with my father. She was just there. Because that's who she is. What you do for the people who are there for you when they have nothing to gain from it. That tells you something about the person you actually are. I cleared her mother's medical balance because it was the right thing to do, and because I could, and because she would have done it for me if the situation were reversed and she had the means. That's not generosity as performance. That's just what loyalty looks like when it has resources behind it. Griffin is gone. My name is on the door now, in a way it wasn't before. And I'm sitting with the understanding that both of those things happened because of accumulation. Small decisions made honestly over a long time, and not because of one dramatic moment in a conference room. The moment just made it visible.